Many of you turned. No. So I think we all can agree. Are we glad that President Trump didn't quit? Amen. And I can tell you, I'm glad that my former colleague, Delegate Deb Ray, hasn't quit. Here she is helping me too. And a lot like, one of the movies that my family likes to watch, Gettysburg, there's Colonel Chamberlain, I think he is, the famous guy from Maine, and he stands in the gap at the very crucial moment for our country, and they're called the end of the line. They are those who stand in the gap, and they don't give up. Well, I see that that's kind of what you're doing here. You're not giving up, and you are leading and helping our party across the state of Maryland to understand what our values are, what we stand for, and what we will vote for, both in this primary and in November. And I'm humbly here asking for your vote. It's partly why I'm running again. I don't want to give up, I'm not going to quit. And this time, with your help, we are going to send this man, Mr. Moore, packing back to New York. I want to introduce first my Lieutenant Governor candidate, Rob Kropp, who's here with me. And my daughter, campaign manager, Patience Faith. You might have seen her before. And my son, Jackson's here hanging out with me tonight because the next generation needs to hear of what we believe in and why we're doing this. Politics can be draining, can be difficult, can be discouraging, but the rewards are the future of our children and grandchildren are hanging in the balance. They truly are. My wife and I are blessed now with 4 grandkids. 2 of our older kids are married with our grandchildren, and both have had to leave Maryland for one reason. We're too expensive, we're too dangerous, and this governor is too arrogant and dishonest. And we're going to change that. Maryland is too expensive, and as you know it, at least most of you probably saw this, I know I did, the average of the property tax rate increased by 20% since the last election. Why did that happen? Because Wes Moore went around and said, we're going to pretend I'm not going to raise taxes so I can pretend I'm going to run for something nationally, but instead we're going to kick the taxes to the local counties and we're going to up the tax assessment values on unrealized gains on your homes. And as you know, that's illegal. It's illegal to tax you beyond up to $500,000 on your capital gains. So what they're doing, what Wes Moore did was he's taking it before you actually sell it. He's taking your money now, so he gets it either way, doesn't he? Yeah. And the problem is he's taking from our kids. And so as governor, a lot of people ask me, well, what can you do with a deep blue, and Delegate Ray knows this, what can we do with a deep blue, crazy sometimes legislature? They call it, as you probably heard Delegate Morgan say before, the asylum. What can we do? Well, a lot. The governor can order the tax assessment valuation to stop this 100% plus 110% taxing of our property values. We can take immediate action, that's what I intend to do, to slash those valuations so that we bring those tax property values, the taxes down on our values. We have to. Additionally, I would like to embarrass the legislature into making sure they pass my package of senior tax relief to stop taxing our retirement and our Social Security and making sure that our seniors can stay in Maryland. We lost approximately 40,000 a year, most of whom are seniors, retirees, heading out, leaving Dodge. We have to stop that if we're going to maintain the future of Maryland. We're too dangerous. Now, I've had the privilege of serving and supporting my sheriff, who the legislature has targeted. And you're going to hear a quick story, if I have a second, about part of the targeting. But the legislature targeted my sheriff because he stood for 287G. Why? To protect my kids in Frederick County. So we have a robust 287G program where we're getting the darndest of criminals out of there. 1,500 of the worst. Let me tell you, some of these people are snipers. They were trained down in South America for guerrilla warfare. They're the worst of the worst, MS-13 and other gangs. And we don't have a problem in Frederick as it's growing elsewhere in the state because of 287G. I am going to implement 287G statewide in Maryland through the state police and working with the federal authorities. And when I said that, I mean it, because we have to protect our state. Now, the Democrats have passed a law trying to prevent us and prevent law enforcement from working with 287G. Well, this is something that's widely supported, though. Democrats and Republicans alike, 80% say we want the violent criminals through the 287G program taken out of our state. They're also taking our jobs. We can make that happen. And the way we intend to do it is to embarrass them once again. I have a client whose daughter, and I'll say that the young lady's name, Kayla Hamilton, was slaughtered, raped, strangled, and slaughtered by an MS-13 unaccompanied minor flown here by Biden and Mayorkas. And then you guys, me, paid for this monster to be housed with our taxpayer money next door to my client's daughter, who's a 20-year-old young lady. Didn't even know she was living next to somebody who was on the wanted list from Venezuela for what he confessed to 3 other women he had murdered before he came here, as a 17-year-old. And you know what was even more disgusting and what's continuing to this day because of these Democrat policies that Westmore is advancing? He was placed in a public school next to unknowing young ladies in the classroom whose parents never knew that he had this background. That's going to end on my watch. We're going to protect Maryland once again. And lastly, I am tired of the gaslighting. I'm tired of the shiny smile. He no longer just has a shiny smile, he has a record. Maryland is tired of it. 85% do not trust Westmore, the New Yorker. You know why? He lied about his Bronze Star. He got it 17 years later. He's lied about his thesis from Oxford. The Bodleian librarian said it doesn't even exist, you can't find it. He's lied about much of his background. He's the poster child of dishonesty, and he's carrying this into our pocketbooks by firing the IGs, the inspector generals, from hundreds of millions of missing dollars in our budget. And he's putting in his own lawyers not to find out where the money went, but to cover it up. I'm going to end that. We're going to bring in independent counsel. We're going to audit every department. And we're going to find that money, and it's going to come back to our pocket. This $4 billion structural deficit we have now is going to end quickly because we're going to work with the federal authorities, number one. We're going to get the bridge built fast, like DeSantis has proven can be done by Republicans. And we're also going to make sure that that money is saved quickly because the governor has a 20% discretionary power over the budget. That's about $15 billion of immediate power the governor can exercise to reduce our budget and to save our state and our future. So that's a little snippet. I'm honored. I'm asking for your vote. Some people say, well, what sets you apart from other people in the race? My first thought is, what other people? That's why I jumped in, but to be more respectful, that wasn't very respectful. So let me say this. First of all, the number one person that seems to be wanting to challenge and to seek your votes is a lifelong Democrat. Go ahead and vote for him if you like the rain tax, because that's what he got you. He was O'Malley's bag man. If you talk to Governor Ehrlich's talked to me privately and is very strongly asking me to let you know things like the fact that if you like 42 O'Malley taxes with the rain tax, then go ahead and vote for this guy who's a lifelong Democrat, because that's what you're going to get. You're going to get more of the same. Don't listen to the blather. And then additionally, he passed the 2013 gun ban, which is a perfect segue into my running mate who beat the man. My running mate, Rob Kropp, is a businessman, and I'm going to let you hear from him just for a second. Is that okay? Just for a second. I want you to hear his story about how Biden tried to put him in jail, a husband, father of 4 kids, for 35 years, and by the grace of God, we beat him.
So, just quick background on me. I've been in the real estate industry for over 2 decades, helping people buy and sell homes. We do property management, help people with their investments. And then in the past 10 years, my wife and I, we built an indoor shooting range called the Machine Gun Nest, with a simple goal of being able to introduce more people to the Second Amendment in a responsible and enjoyable way. And 3 years ago, we had 12 black unmarked vehicles show up at our indoor shooting range. They raided our facility, they raided my real estate company, and they confiscated 8 of our firearms. And then they began to interrogate me without even telling me what I was being charged with. Over the next year, and 4 failed grand jury attempts, they went for a 5th. But this time, what they did was they took an ATF rule and went and retroactively changed it, and then tried to charge me with this new rule that they created. And I was staring, like Dan said, at 35 years in prison for a crime I did not do. Now, over the next 2 years and 2 speedy trial wins, the judge denied our speedy trial wins and said, no, you're going to trial. But before I went to trial, the ATF and the DOJ came to me offering me a plea deal. The sweetest of sweetheart plea deals. Essentially, it's a $100 fine. All I had to do was say yes to all of their accusations that I did those things and throw our sheriff under the bus. And they just let me go free.
Our 287G sheriff, mind you.
But I said no. I would never lie. I could never look or stare at my children and tell them that I did those things. And by the grace of God, we went to trial, and 12 jurors all stood up and said, not guilty at all. I was not intimidated by the DOJ or the ATF because I serve a God that is bigger than all of them. And Dan and I are not intimidated by a government who has stopped working for all of us. And we're going to go in there and we're going to fight for every Marylander because you deserve it.
Thank you. So one more thing, I'm going to fight the surveillance state. It's a huge problem coming. It's a massive industry coming your way to monitor everything you do, everywhere you go. It's going to put a permanent mark on you if you carry around your cell phone. We're going to fight that and ban it here in Maryland. You need a governor to do that. You have got to have the strength of the governor's office to fight the surveillance state. The 2 other main Republicans I'm running against are both CIA or intelligence retirees. They are for the surveillance state, with all due respect. I'm the only guy who's going to fight that for you. So I humbly submit that to you as well, and then I'll be happy to answer some questions. I don't know if you know anything about me. I'm a dad. We have 10 kids. My wife and I have 10 children. Lifelong Marylander, 4 grandkids. And my wife is from right across here over in Dorchester. So we're local. We love y'all. Oh, that way?
That way.
Well, I know it wasn't that. 'Cause that's the river, right?
All right, we have 2 questions.
All right.
Hi there. As a mom who was directly affected by the DDA cuts this year that Westmore allowed to happen, the Democrats let happen, what are you going to do about those cuts when you get in there?
Excellent question. The DDA cuts, what that is, everybody, if you don't know, is the Developmental Disabilities Administration had $250 million taken out of it by Wes Moore, and he put it into his pet programs. Like one of them is $2.5 billion for illegal alien funding in Maryland. Our taxpayer dollars carrying on that welfare. That's going to end on my watch. I'm going to refund and make sure we fully fund DDA. As a dad of a special needs myself, my wife and I, our 4-year-old is Down syndrome, and he's our star and joy. And we don't actually participate in the program, but we know many friends who need it. They have to have the 24/7 care. Our son's he's an active guy. We're very blessed. But this is crucial. It's our most vulnerable population, and I'm the first and I think the only Republican candidate to go on record. I was at the big disabilities fair at College Park just a week and a half or so ago, and I met a lot of great people there, and I made this clear. I am going to take this on because you know why he did it? Wes Moore is covering up a $68 million fraud, in my humble opinion, alleged, okay? I want to make that clear on the record if you're recording. There's a $68 million alleged fraud from the federal government. They audited the DDA funding that Wes Moore was manipulating or was handling, and apparently there was some fake money being sent out to people who were not qualified to be allowed to have it, and yet they winked and let it go, and they did not pursue that. So then they used that excuse to then say, well, we have to then take the money away from everybody. Good, honest people. They took 127 million, 127 million approximately, and they moved it over into their pet programs, and that cost us another 100 million from the federal government. That's going to end. We're going to make sure we take care of our most vulnerable, and we can do it. A lot of people saying, well, he's doing it because the budget's short. No. Look, he's overspending in almost all these areas. For instance, $300 million lost in Baltimore City education alone on, you know what? This is just one program in Baltimore City where it's $300 million lost. You know what it is? Ghost students. You heard of this?
Yes.
Yes.
So what happened was all of these fake people were signing up so the teachers, excuse me, not the teachers, the unions could take the money in for these students, but there were no students. They were just on the register. And no one followed up, no one audited. $300 million went into the pockets. That's going to end on my watch.
Thanks for coming down. We're talking about Frederick County. Did the ICE go into Frederick City? Got people out there. Frederick City. Sanctuary City, right?
Sadly, it is, and yes, we've had activity. However, because we have a sheriff who enforces the law, who has jurisdiction over Frederick City, we don't have a sheriff who's got his knees cut out from under him. We have a full sheriff. We're one of, I think, 13 counties that has a full sheriff.
Yeah.
Do you all have a full sheriff?
Yes.
See, so you know what I'm talking about. But in counties like Howard and Montgomery and Prince George's, they cut the sheriff's knees off and all they do is bailiffs work. And so that the county executive can control everything they do. Not in our county. In our county, they go in, the sheriff goes in to Frederick City and helps the feds get the bad guys out. So we haven't had yet anyway, any mass protests of ICE kicking in doors because we got a sheriff working with the authorities. When you have a sheriff or when you have law enforcement supported to work with the federal authorities the way it's supposed to happen, you don't have this kind of craziness that we saw in some of these other cities.
So you talked a little bit earlier about ending or stopping the surveillance state. So I assume you're talking about companies like Flock, is that right? So in St. Mary's County, there are 3 Flock cameras at present. There's one at the St. Mary's Square, there's one at the Lowe's, and there's another one right at the entrance to the Solomon's Island Bridge. For the club, could you talk a little bit about Flock and a lot of what they're trying to do, expanding the surveillance state and all that type of stuff, and what you as governor would do to combat that?
Excellent. Well, we have a great law in the books where they're not allowed in Maryland to track student data, although they tried. And so in my committee, Judiciary Committee, they tried to bring in Chinese cameras with a Chinese company to put them in the classrooms on the wonderful notion of protecting children. It's always about the children, right? Protecting the children. We're going to have cameras in the classroom. And there might be a place for that, particularly in disabled classrooms. However, as I've seen, as an attorney, I've seen some really horrific things go down against our poor disabled kids that I wish was videoed so we could have prosecuted the right person. However, when they are tracking your facial recognition technology, putting it in a Chinese database, and then with these new cameras now, they can their Fourth Amendment violations, they can, and I'm not an expert in this, but they can look into you.
Yes, correct.
And they can see, kind of like at the airport, everybody, down to their skin or whatever. It's bad. And that's not the only thing. They're also trying to bring in cars, obviously, to have cameras in the cars to watch us. This is a big problem, and the governor, as governor, what I would immediately do is two things. Immediately suspend it by executive order. No county's allowed to do that anywhere. All cameras must be taken down instantly. Now, a lot of the pushback I get as an attorney especially is, well, how do you have the power to do that? Well, emergency power. Look, if they can use emergency powers to try to screw us with some horrible COVID vaccines, you better believe we can make sure we protect our bodies and stop these cameras. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to do something that no other governor, to my knowledge, has done. Maybe Governor Ehrlich, I think, had an office similar, but I'm going to have an Office of Constitutional Counsel in my governor's office. Yeah. And I've got friends who are, we're constitutional litigators. I've got them ready to volunteer. People are, where are you going to afford that? Well, look, the governor has 2 helicopters, a jet, maybe 2 jets, actually, and a whole fleet of stuff. We can save hundreds of millions of dollars from the budget. His $25 million a year executive office salary and cost can be used somewhat to make sure, why? That we have constitutional protections, because we sure as heck know the AG is not going to protect us. So half the battle I've learned in 21 years of litigating against the most horrific state abuses has been showing up to court is 50% of the win. Do you know that we don't normally show up to court on this stuff? So it just goes through. So we're going to fight it with an Office of Constitutional Counsel to uphold the executive order, to fight the AG, and to fight the those who would come against us to try to strike down the executive orders. And I know executive order litigation because I had the privilege of being the only lawyer in Maryland. And people say that, well, you're a loser. You sued all these COVID cases and you lost. No, look them up. Look them up. I sued them, and every single time that we sued the state, then there would be usually the next Wednesday, there'd be a reopening a little bit. We started golfing, then we started opening the playgrounds again. Then we it just went down the line, and we stopped the vaccine mandate. And then we won the case, the only case to my knowledge in history that's overturned an executive order. We reopened restaurants at Christmas time. Yeah. Now, my opponent, 2 weeks later, ordered, or I say my opponent, not really, Wes Moore's my opponent. He's part of the WEF. We know that he's a globalist. We're going to fight him. But there's also a globalist I'm running against here, the CIA guy who's a lifelong Democrat. As the president of the Baltimore Blast, the owner of Baltimore Blast, 2 weeks after I won the court case, reopening restaurants and saying that COVID was on its way out, he makes an announcement that hurts all children's athletics in Maryland by closing Baltimore Blast down for the rest of the year. And I'm telling you that because you need to research your candidates. Yeah. Yes. Now, I don't really care about him too much because I think most people are smart enough to know that you don't elect a lifelong Democrat as a Republican nominee. It's just not the way it works. But just in case you didn't know.
Ann was also the only delegate threatened by Governor Hogan for, he wanted to meet with his constituents, and Hogan threatened to throw him in jail during COVID. But I have a question, Dan.
So if I could just say, I'm trying really hard to be respectful to Governor Hogan because at the time that he was actually not liking me, Deb knows all this, I actually defended his vetoes on the House floor. You can look this up. I was giving speeches in defense of his vetoes. Why? Because it's not about a person, it's about principle to me. That's what matters. Secondly, and Deb knows this as well. Secondly, I was threatened with arrest, and I had to get a federal judge to order the government that a state delegate has a lawful right to represent his constituents and leave his house. Because I was threatened with arrest, and it wasn't for my sheriff, I would have been arrested. My sheriff called me up and said he's received intel and orders that I was to be arrested at such and such an exit on the way to Annapolis as a seated state delegate. And I asked why. He said, because they're going to make an example of you. Because you're the one that's out there being a loud man. So that was the grace of God, because I don't want to be arrested.
Okay, so I have a question. Did the counties have the right to tell the state government, we're not accepting your unfunded mandate?
Boy, that's a great question, and I don't know the answer
I'll tell you the
immediately.
answer is yes.
Well, but I was gonna qualify it, okay? There's two ways to answer that. I don't know the answer in terms of the ultimate litigation win, because I have to pull the case law, but I can tell you as a matter of constitutional principle, when a county government, which is the sovereign authority within the jurisdiction, is being ordered to do something that's not funded, I believe there's constitutional remedies. And so I would agree with you, Deb, that doesn't seem like it should or can fly. And that's what we have. Unfortunately, Deb, you're absolutely right. This is what's happening, and this is what we need to stop. The governor has sent his mandates directly to the counties and said that now this county has to raise taxes 20%. Look, it's coming, folks. The train is coming next year because the budget was passed at $71 billion with a $4 billion structural deficit. And the Constitution mandates that $4 billion be gapped next year. So that train is coming. They're going to raise your taxes another 20%. That's why we have to fight now. That's why I'm in the race. Otherwise, I don't know, I might have to leave the state because I got 10 kids. I can't handle it anymore.
Go ahead, Jim.
I heard today that selected contractor to repair the Key Bridge, that the cost is going way up. I can't remember the number. So my question to you is, would you support an increase to repair that bridge? And number two, do we really need to repair the bridge?
That's a great double question. I'll answer the second one first, and that is, yes, I believe we need the bridge because we're losing $15 million a day estimated on our port loss. It's one of the largest and fastest, one of the biggest moving ports on the East Coast. It's crushing Maryland, it's hurting. And I had personal experience with constituents from that side who can't get to work. They're spending 5 and 6 hours a day trying to get to work. It's a disaster that's growing. And Westmore is in our faces saying that it's the fastest moving bridge movement in America. That's a total buffoon lie. That's a nonsense statement. It doesn't comport with reality. The company who built it is called the American Bridge Company out of Pittsburgh now. And I'm going to call them up. I've reached out to them to see what their timeline would be if they would come in and fix the problem. The issue is we need to have a leadership that looks at this like DeSantis does. And so, no, I would not automatically pay an extra, billion and put it to $7 billion. What needs to happen is what I said earlier on, a couple months back, even maybe last year. But I very specifically said that the closed bid process was wrong. Yeah. And it set us up for failure because what had happened was the agency, COIT or whatever it was called, they got a guaranteed income with no cap. I mean, who wouldn't want that? My word. And so Congress then passes a little bit of help and says, well, we're going to help build the bridge. There's no cap in the congressional measure, and there's no clarity as to whether you and I have to pay half of it or Congress pays all of it or what the deal is. There's a problem there because now there's no cap. And so, of course, they're going to continue to say, oh, we need another billion. And I'm not saying that this is nefarious. I'm just saying that this is a practical thing for businesses. When you're the only competitor, you don't have any competition, and you want to make sure you do it right, and all of a sudden you look at things and the economy continues to have issues, and yes, you're going to have skyrocketing costs. So the way to get back to reality is to start with an open bid process to bring in the best of the best in the world, which we can. You can see this in other nations, you can see it in Europe, you can see it right down here in Florida. Governor DeSantis rebuilt that bridge in 6 months that got wiped out. Now I understand wasn't as deep water, okay. But if you can do a very long bridge over a span in 6 months with a very well-governed bidding process, with a Republican approach of accountability for the contract, and you get it done and it's a beautiful bridge, you can sure as heck, I think, do a rebuild right here in the Chesapeake Bay, one of the best bays in our country, and a very easy bay where it's a calm bay. It's not like we're going across some really treacherous waters all the time. So I think we can get it done in a better way, and I would reopen the process. I would make sure that we have a cap so that we meet our federal mandates. And if they can't do it, look, we'll look to places where they can get it done. And I'm certain we can do it. I mean, it's just a matter of the free market.
And we have time for one more question. Go ahead, Scott.
Sir,
Can you get
it's
a
been a priority of mine since I took office.
You need to use the mic.
Been a priority of mine since I took office. I've pushed on it. Every time we have met with State Highway and everybody else, I have asked this question. We need a new Thomas Johnson Bridge. If you become governor, what are you going to do for us in getting that bridge and also keeping it not a toll bridge?
I thank you for that. And I'll tell you, I have fought toll roads and bridges ever since I was first elected as a delegate. Why? Because, first of all, I don't believe in it, because I believe we should have the freedom to move about without being taxed by some oligarchical company. Secondly, the Constitution says we have the right to travel. And when they started putting a toll on the only road to DC, that's a tax to go and speak it with your own representatives. No, it's a bad, tolls are horrific. I will oppose them always, and to get the bridge built, I will certainly bring all the people together to look at it. This is another thing I liked about Governor Hogan. He got it done over here with the bridge. Now, I don't know what the local sentiment is on that, but it seems to me that he got it done under budget and below time, right? Or below budget and under time. So that's the Republican approach. I would bring those same experts in and we'll look at it. And I'm certainly open to your views as well as Commissioner. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to chat more. God bless. It's dancoxforgovernor.com, and there's a little form on there you can reach out. We are asking for volunteers. Of course, we want your money too, because we got to fight this New Yorker. He gets Hampton Roads money, guys. Okay, 14 million. But we're going to beat him. We're going to beat him and embarrass him. He's going to have Hampton Roads money, and we're going to have true Marylanders out there working. We had a movement last time. It was the workers on the ground that did it. It was the volunteers. We're doing it again. We're building that army. So if you could jump in now and tell us how you can help out. We've got lots of opportunities. My daughter is coordinating. We have a campaign. We have a volunteer coordinator who's helping do that. dancoxforgovernor.com. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Dan. All right, now, another trivia question.
Another trivia question.